So happy to see you and very humbled to be invited to come and share with this very energetic group. And being a Sunday morning is a bit, the weather is very nice, and I hope that we'll warm up each other. Thank you for your kind remarks. I'm happy that you didn't try to crucify me. I never like those moments. I was asked to speak about, openly to share with you partly my life story, but integrate it with the current challenges that we see at the workplace, the shifting, workplace that we all face. You can see the topic, career and business shifts in the 21st century, navigating the new landscape. I will try to weave through the story, so that I can bring out those elements in what I've seen as my own journey. And I really don't know where to begin. I would like us to be very free with each other and be very flexible. Just feel free for this morning, because I am here to share the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I hope that at the end of the day, you will pick something from there. Avoid those mistakes, but also take the ones that you may wish to take. I must say I enjoyed the last session. Having been, when she introduced me, she by the way said career diplomat. I'm never a career diplomat, by the way. And I'll be saying something about that, because then you will say, how come you are Your Excellency? That is another story, but I will say something about it. I've never been a diplomat. And so that somebody might, a diplomat in the traditional sense. I'm a diplomat by default, and I'll explain that. How many of you in this room are from the legal profession or aspiring to be lawyers? How many are from the accounting profession, all the branches of accounting? I would say almost a quarter of the room. How many are from economics, sector? Oh, there's only one. Oh, two. Okay. Three. Okay. And how many are from other professions like engineers? Oh, very many. Oh, I'm happy to see that. And doctors, medicine. Oh, thank you. Good to see it. Oh, thank you. Thank you to see that. And of you, how many of you are married? Quite a number of you. The reason I'm asking, I'm trying to see how I can talk to each one of you, particularly if you are going to get into your profession and the career and also family. How do you balance it? So what I'm going to do is a very quick overview of my journey. And then at the end of it, also touch, do I have a pattern for changing, or I will rely? Somebody will change it. Okay. And so I'll give you a quick overview of, my academics, and then professional journey, and then, of course, now in the corporate world. As you heard, I'm chairman, Equity Bank, and I hope I'll get some of you also become Equity alumni in one way or another. I just hope in the room here there is one who has been through Equity, Wings to Fly. Any one of you from Equity, Wings to Fly? Oh, there you are. You can see a product from Wings to Fly from Equity. I'm happy to see you. I like to meet you at some stage and understand how that has transformed you. Can somebody guess my age? I want you to relax. Yes. did you get to know that? How did you know that? Okay, you? Can somebody get my age? How much? 65. Another one? 77. How many of you think that I'm over 70? How many of you think I'm in the 60s? Majority of you think I'm in the 60s. Do I say the eyes carry, take it? Yeah. I will be 77 this year. Yeah, I'll be 77 this year. And so I want to start the journey. Because I started school before, I'm sure even some of you, your parents could be even younger than me. And I started school in a colonial era. It was so difficult for me to start school in a family of 9. And by the way, I've done my manuals. They are almost ready for printing. And once it's ready, I'll also share a copy here. My father was incarcerated by the colonial people and was at Kericho as a tea worker. I was forced as child labor to go and assist my uncle. And so I didn't start school on time. I started school when I was 10 plus. In spite of the fact that I look old, I started school when I was 10. And my first test of failure was in what we used to call common entrance exam, competitive examination, which was for standard 4 to standard 5. I sat for that examination in 1960, and I failed. It was traumatizing for me because I had not prepared myself for that failure. And so I was made to go and repeat standard 4. And when I went to repeat in standard 4, my teacher was particularly harsh on me because there were very few people who were repeating. I met people who had come from standard 3, now I'm repeating. So the teacher was very hard on me because we did an examination to grade us either stream A or B. We were about 70, 80. And I was a number that would have pushed me to stream B. And that offended the teacher. The teacher was very hard on me. But from there on, that pressure changed me. I don't know whether pressure works, because thereafter, my performance was much better, and so on. To the extent that when I was in standard 7, I sat an examination which was for standard 8. I went Form 1 with the people who were in standard 8, which was also a challenge for me. That was in 1964, the first time that they opened school for standard 7 to be with those who have come from standard 8 to be in Form 1. It was a most trying period for me, in Form 1 also. But I caught up. By the time I went Form 3, I had caught up Form 4 and all that. I was now asking myself when I was in Form 3, what do I want to do? Career. Somehow I wanted to be an agriculture officer. And I was told that the subject to look for, I needed to do some chemistry, maths, geography, and biology. I focused on those. But when I did my Form 4 examination, the results from those subjects were not very good. So I felt, no, I cannot go to Form 5 with this kind of grade. I failed, but I had passed well enough. I had a Division 2, very near Division 1, by a mark. I said, no, let me go for an art stream, because that perhaps would be easier for me. And so I changed course. Now the next thing then I said, okay, which other profession do I want to do? I said, let me be a lawyer. And the reason why I chose to be a lawyer, my brother was arrested Kisii town for illegal connection of electricity. And when he was taken to court, growing up under colonial rule, I feared policemen, Mr. Masengeri. I feared policemen. I feared completely. But I saw a lawyer challenging a policeman in court, asking hard questions. Then I said, this is job that I want. So I chose to be a lawyer. But when I did my Form 6 examination, the rules had changed that you had to have 3 principles to do law. I had 2. So the university then now I wanted to look at the reason, if you go to the next, I say here, education, the 0 option. You can see all my options are being closed. And now I'm getting depressed. So I go to university and I want to enroll and ask myself, which is the career that I should do? Somebody tells me economics. And then economics, I realized I had dropped my mathematics when I was in Form 3. I hadn't done quite well, although even Form 5 was doing it. Form 5 and 6, I had not done my economics. So, but I said, that's now what I want. So I went to enroll, and the teacher said, your maths, you did maths up to Form 4, and it was a credit, not the best of the credits. We can't allow you in the economics. I said, no, allow me, I'll get it. And so I enrolled for mathematics and all the rest. So at university I finished. I had an honors degree in economics, to my surprise. But I had worked hard, very hard. And so here I must stress the need for hard work. At university, I was really seriously working very hard. I graduated with economics honors. Now I'm going to the world. That time they used to come and recruit us. I had a call from the Minister of Planning to go as an economist. I had another one from Central Bank to join banking. But I also had opportunity to join the academia because I had passed very well. Now, for some reason, the head of department didn't think that he could give me that space, although I had a scholarship to go to US to train as an academia for the class. It was a Rockefeller Foundation scholarship. So when they denied, I said, let me go to government, because from government, I'll go and do my postgraduate. I joined the government, employed as an economist, but then seconded the Ministry of Trade and Industry as an economist. But I was taken to the Department of Industry. This is where my career started working, because that exposed me to all industry in the country, to understand the various sectors of industry: agro-industries, chemical industries, metal industries. And I was working in a department which was sponsored by UNIDO, and I was placed to work under the department, under the section of metal and engineering. An economist, not well trained, but my trainer was an engineer. So you put an economist and engineer together to work together. That was tough for me, because I had to learn language, I had to learn words and all things which I had never heard of. And at that time, we started negotiating with Americans to establish General Motors in Kenya. And I have to sit in the table to listen to what they're saying about SKD, CKD, leaf springs, something I had not learned. I had to start learning. Fast forward, I go to the planning, and I'm given a scholarship to go to the US. I'm in Canada to do my postgraduate, come back. I'm now advancing in the career. The government in Kenya, that was now in the late 70s, because I joined civil service in the early 70s. Kenya was doing very well, wants to industrialize. And one of the things then we are saying, we need an iron and steel industry in the country. And so I was asked to be a team leader to undertake that study. When I did it, I realized that Kenya could not support that sector on its own because the market, first of all, was so small, didn't have all the factors of production for that plant. For instance, iron ore was in Uganda, coal was in Tanzania, and the rest. That then told me that here is not going to work. So I needed to start looking of how can Kenya industrialize. At that same time, the East African community dies. And negotiations start, finish of establishing what is now COMESA, but at that time it was known as PTA. I'm growing career in the civil service. And I traveled to Japan. When I'm in Japan, I meet somebody who tells me, have you ever heard of PTA? I said, yes. Have you applied for a job there like I did? Yes. He says, you will get it and I will get it. Can you imagine? That gentleman was from Mauritius. We met in Japan. And sure enough, while we are there, we get letters of invitation to go for interview with the Economic Commission for Africa in Addis Ababa. We went, got the jobs, and went to Zambia. Even resigning from government because now I had become a director. And being a director at that age, I was already now about 36. I'm a director of industry. And I'm now being given a position out of the country. My friends came to me saying, are you mad? Because the next position you're going to be a deputy permanent secretary and a permanent secretary. Why are you leaving the country? But for me, I have that ambition. I want my country to industrialize. There's conflict in my mind. I say I'll go. I don't even know where I'm going. The institution is new. We arrived there. We are 6 of us to start a new organization nobody has ever heard of. It was very hard lifting. I ended up, when I left Kenya, going there, I said, no, let me go for 2 years. If I don't like it, I'll come back and continue my career. Fortunately, the government released me on secondment. Arriving in Zambia and starting that job, I now realized the heavy lifting of starting a new organization. Of course, we built and started, PTA started. Eventually, that was transformed to be PTA, COMESA. As I am growing, I had gone to COMESA as a senior industrial expert. But over time, in about 10 years, I had become director. I was now number 2 in the organization. And my Secretary General, for some reason, I'm really cutting it, is removed because he was interested in politics and unaware of what was happening. I am asked by the Council of Ministers that you act as Secretary General because I was now number 2. Of course, the gentleman who was asked to leave eventually became President of Malawi. And so I stepped into that office unprepared, not even trained for it, feeling very vulnerable. But that is perhaps the fortune I had. Because then I said, I am going to rely on my colleagues that we work together as a team. So we developed a team. PTA Jan unknown to unknown, yeah. We'll leave it there. I'll come back to it. So we developed the teamwork. Through some grace, developed the teamwork because I was now open to learn how do you run an organization. And with the team that we developed, we started to make progress in many, many areas, some of the things which I mentioned. Before I get there, let me step back and say, when I left university, what did I do? And now when I was working in Nairobi, when I walked out of Compass, I was not already baptized. I was not baptized. Because I'd wanted to be baptized when I was around 14 years. And my teacher failed me. And you know the reason why they failed me? I didn't go to work on his farm. Because in those days you had to go and work on the farm. And thereafter, I kind of said, then now I'm not going to read. And I also liked sports a lot. So part of my youth, I'm very active physically. So I kind of left without being baptized. But when I was at university, I had a cousin who was an engineer, who had been to New Zealand, came back as one of the very first structural engineers. He was a member of this church for a long time called Professor Nsongo. Some of you probably would have parents who will know him. And that attracted me to him. And that is what brought me to Nairobi Central Church. So when I left university, the first place I started going to is this church. We worship there. And so I am a product of Nairobi Central Church. And so as I was now worshiping here, and before I got my scholarship to go to Canada to do postgraduate, the next one, you need to get married, especially when I was going to Canada. I used my friends to look for me for my partner. What am I saying here now? Role models do matter. Please be a role model. If not, help somebody to be a role model. So that is what helped me. So when I got married, as I was going to Canada, I was only introduced because people were putting under pressure. If you go to Canada to study and you are a bachelor, you may not come back without having to marry from outside. So marry before you go. I couldn't get a lady ready to marry. My wife was still in college at the medical school. So I persuaded her that let's start friendship. When I'm in Canada, we can marry. So I had to come for leave to come and marry. Now, okay, in the workplace, I am now Secretary General COMESA, and I am working. By the way, even when I became Secretary General COMESA, it was miraculous for me. I could see God's hand because I was not the most experienced, except the fact that I'd been there, grown up with the job, I understood the job. One of the things then I would advise you, please try to be agile in your workplace. An institution like COMESA, I had to learn so many things about trade, about industry, about agriculture, about transport. So what I'm going to advise you is, please be agile. Don't be a stickler to only one line and be very narrow. I have seen this. And the reason I'm still in this environment, and I'll be talking about other things later on, is you must always continue to improve yourself. Continue, pursue education as a lifelong profession, that you don't give up at any stage. And so, because I had that experience, I did well for the interview, in spite of the fact that I was really up against very stiff competition. I was appointed Secretary General, and while I was in COMESA Secretary General, I served there for 2 terms, which is a maximum you are allowed as Secretary General. And because of that position, you are normally given a title. Because it's a diplomatic position, you are given a title of excellence. So I have now started to tell you why. So I'm not a career diplomat, I grew into that by profession. Now, having gone through that, I was now about to leave COMESA because I'd done 2 terms. And during that time, I developed a very strong network. of Secretary Generals, like SADC, the head of SADC was a good friend of mine, East African Community, ECOWAS, all those. We knew each other as Secretary Generals. So I go to Madagascar to say goodbye to the head of state. And when I'm there, he hosts a dinner for me. And then when we're having dinner, he asks me. So that's when I was learning I learned all these manners of how to eat. By the way, while in Zambia, one of the things which used to humble me is when you would go for dinner, for instance, in State House with President Kaunda. President Kaunda would serve all his guests. He would not even allow the waiter to serve. He's the one to give you a plate, if it is a buffet. He taught me humility. And also, he taught me about humanism. So anyway, I go to Madagascar to say goodbye, head of state. His advisor was a former executive of SADC, somebody from Mauritius. And so we go for dinner, and as we are seated for dinner, he asks me, "You are leaving Comesa, you look young. Where are you going?" I say, "No, I'm going home. I'll go and maybe pursue now academia and be in university lecture and write books." He says, No. I have seen some jobs advertised at AU. Apply. I say, can I say no? I said, "No, let me go and look at it, Your Excellency." So I looked at it and I applied. But I don't have resources to campaign. Government of Kenya was not supporting my candidature as such because they already had some other names, people they wanted to sponsor, and these things happen. And here I am. But fortunately, because of the network I developed in West Africa with ECOWAS, in SADC with the SADC countries, in East Africa, when we go for elections in Addis, and the vote is done by heads of state and government, as you have seen this election, I emerged the winner. I saw God's hand again. Honestly, I saw God's hand in it. And so I'm now deputy chairperson. By the way, let me go back and say something, because I said I would waive it. As Secretary General in Comesa, everybody knew I will not be working on Sabbath. Everybody knew. And now there is a time when I had now been made acting. I'm acting before I did the interview to be made Secretary General. I'm in church. It's a Sabbath morning. And I see my driver coming, because normally I didn't allow him to take me to church on Sabbath. I would drive on my own. And so he comes. And he comes to me and he says, "State House is calling you." And then I say, "How come? Today is Sabbath. What is this?" Now I started saying, "Does the president know that I worship on Sabbath?" Because I was acting, he probably hasn't known me because I was not very senior. So then I said, "Do I go or do I not go?" I prayed, I said, "Look, because I don't know why he's calling me, let me go." Point of failure. But then when I reach State House, he calls me in private room. He's just himself alone, and I go in, and he says, "Thank you for coming." I say, "I'm sorry, Mr. President, I'm a bit late. I was in church." Then he looks at me and says, "Then why did you come? Can you see this?" But I am grateful that he corrected me in a very nice way. He says, "But why did you come?" I said, "I didn't know why you were calling me, Mr. President, and I didn't want to refuse to come. Because I thought it would have been very impolite to refuse to come." So anyway, thereafter we shared a lot. And we became friends by sharing. And thereafter we really would share much. So here you are. I go to Addis. Fast forward to Addis. When I reach Addis, if you notice, most of the summits are taken on Sabbath. And as a deputy chairperson, it's not going to be easy to have those meetings on Sabbath. Fortunately, my chairman, my chairperson, he was very flexible. I said, why don't we change these sermons to start on Sunday? And the people in the room, particularly the commission, we are 10 commissioners. We used to be 10, now they are 8. The commissioner say, yeah, but if you don't want it on Saturday, you can't put it on Sunday also. I said, but you people have never had any problems. You accept to work on Sunday. Me, it is something I can't do. So you have your service without me. But the chairperson then he says, no, let's listen to him. And we know him, so we can start our summit on Sundays. Actually, the summits were changed. They were starting on Sunday. And I thank God because that was another miracle, because I had already decided I would not be attending the opening of the summit. Not only that, the Christian community in Addis Ababa got to know that he is one of us. Not Adventist church, but the Christian community. They came to me and they said, look, since AU, we have always had Muslims. Even now it's a Muslim who was elected last time. We have hardly had Christians here. And we need to start this place to have a place of worship. I said, what do you want? We want to start a prayer breakfast. I said, let's start it. So during the summit day on Sunday, we would host a prayer breakfast where we would invite the heads of state and government to come for prayer breakfast. Then now we go into the summit. That was not by Adventists, by the way. It was by non-Adventists. But use that occasion to bring in a few of Adventist speakers, especially from the GC and others. And so, I also learned that you can take religion to the workplace. And God can open doors where you didn't expect them to be opened. So, having said that, let's now perhaps go to, by the way, at COMESA, one of the things that probably some of you don't know COMESA that much, one of the things that we did while working with the team, COMESA was the first to establish a free trade area. I'm sure you know that, in the year 2000. And we established very strong institutions, like, go back a bit, yeah, that one, Trade and Development Bank, is very strong. Actually, it's based here in Nairobi. It's very strong, also in Burundi, in Mauritius, with a balance sheet over 10 billion. The ATD, Africa Trade Insurance and Investment Trade Agency, is an institution that offers insurance. One of the institutions we started with a balance sheet over 3 billion plus. And also Zebri. It's also, this one is headquarters. If you go to Upper Hill, you see a reinsurance company, also very strong. Plus, of course, a trade agreement, plus many other things that really work. The point I'm trying to make here is, in the workplace, one of the things I learned is teamwork. I've talked about those values one by one, and so I want to fill in teamwork. My experience in COMESA, because I was not ready to assume leadership, I was vulnerable, I allowed free thinking, and because of that, we made very good strides. I would say more about that, but I don't want to say more. And so after having to leave, if you go to Ecclesiastes 9:10, Ecclesiastes 9:10, if you read that, it will tell you something. That if indeed you work hard, you can find yourself even serving kings. My exposure at AU was quite interesting, especially because I had experience of COMESA. I interacted with all sorts of leaders And one of them I cannot forget is Gaddafi. At one time, we became friends, and thereafter, he never wanted to see me. Because he came with a very strong program of wanting a United States of Africa. And the way he was trying to implement was not working. And so I went to the ambassador and says, do you mind us sitting down with the leader to help him to see how we can implement this thing in an easier way? So he invited me, and we sat down on one by one. When we sat one by one, I was telling him, Mr. President, you used to be called Brother Leader. I said, Brother Leader, there is another way we can do it. He felt I was slighting him. Thereafter, he was so offended. In fact, he kind of said, look, please, leave me alone now. But as I left, I was actually worried that I hope he doesn't do something bad to me. When I'm at the airport, the chief of protocol comes and he says, Brother Leader sent a gift to you. And what was the gift? Some camel milk and an envelope. I didn't know what to do. I said, no, but you see, I cannot, first of all, I can't take camel milk and I can't accept this. And I was with my people. I said, look, this, now that is a height of really temptation now. The envelope, I think I could tell is heavy. I didn't even know. I said, may I persuade you? May I persuade you? I cannot accept this. And so even the people I was with, I had 2, 3 of my chief of staff and the rest were astonished. But I stood firm on that because I knew the moment I accept that envelope, I am now cooked. And so, carrying a religion to your workplace carries with it some risks, huge risks. And from there on, he never associated with me, because that was around beginning of 2010, and by 2011, he had been killed. You remember the Arab Spring. And so, yes, my journey, I can tell you, I have seen God's hand. But one of the attributes that I wanted to also ingrain in myself, first of all, is hard work and performing to the best of the abilities that God has given me. And also being a team player. I have always wanted and wished to continue to be a team player wherever I am. Now, having said all this, what challenges do you see now in your work? Yours may not follow mine. It may not be the same pathway. But I'm going to tell you something about the shifting and the changing workplace. Can you? Oh yeah, okay, here. These are 6 points which I want us to summarize with. 1, embrace learning. You heard that at the moment, in addition to what I do, I'm chairman of a bank. It has taken me quite some learning. I mean, to chair a bank, you need to read a lot to understand. There are so many things, because you have to understand the regulation under which the bank is regulated. You have to understand how you grow the balance sheet. You have to understand the risks that you operate, the market risks and all this. It requires learning. Technology. So please, never stop learning. Keep learning, especially in your profession. I know the people in medical, they always want to go. I have medics in my family. Please continue learning. The moment you stop learning, you are decaying. The second one, develop a growth mindset that you will always grow. You will always grow. If you don't have that mindset that you have arrived, you think you have arrived where you are, the next thing is decay. So always be curious. Always be curious and continue learning. The third one, on technology, stay informed. Please stay informed. I hope, how many of you now know how to use AI? How many of us know how to use AI? Oh, I'm so happy. And I'm so humbled to see you. That is how it should be. And how to apply. I tell you, for instance, give me just an example. In the bank now, banking has changed a lot. Just to give you a tip. The old traditional way where you used to come and deposit, go and borrow money, is gone. The bank now that you have, because there are so many fintechs and all this, is a bank, not where you used to go to a bank, you must wear a suit, look nice, look rich, so that you can open an account, but a bank that is customer-centric, that wants to follow the customer's lifestyle and work for you, that when you open your app, you can pay your electricity from there, you can borrow, you can go insurance, you can do whatever. In other words, the bank has changed. And so when you are employed, if you are employed like in accounting department or you are in a cashier, that front-facing customer is going. Because the customers are now on the tech. So you must be also follow where the customers are. So please, be savvy. Please be savvy. Be savvy. And understand the sector very well. The next one, so that's on technology. Venture into business. If I was to take you a journey of when I started business, in fact, when I left university, I took a small loan, bought a car, but also bought land, bought a house, all over. Throughout, I had that mindset. I bought a property in 1984. I took a loan. That property, I paid 1 million. It was so difficult. I don't want to tell you the value of that property now, because you will not believe it. You will not believe it. So even when you start select assets in a manner, get somebody who can advise you so that you don't have one narrow track that you have to have your salary. You can start some business that you can do. You can always have some group you work with, that you work with business. There's so many opportunities. The moment you rely already on a salary, I don't know how I can survive on a salary. Honestly, I can't see how I can. So I'm encouraging you. But maybe because I have too many dependents and the rest. So please, be curious. Even as a church here, I have been invited by CITAM. They have started investment clubs to go and mentor them and ask to them, work with them. Why don't we start here? Get like-minded and start that kind of thing. The world we live in now, when you are in a business, in a workplace, how are decisions taken these days? I'll tell you this. For instance, if you look at the reports when we go to the board, I can hardly see a sentence. Because I'll tell you, if it cannot be measured, it cannot be done. Data. You bring me data. It is data that now operates in the business world. This is part of the shifting that is done. That the business is now data-driven. As we are here, this to me a gold mine. Because if I capture all your data, your phone numbers, this is something that I can use profitably. Because I'll get to know your consumer habits, I will know where you visit, what you buy, and they send you those products to you. Yeah. That's how that is now even the banking has improved, because the bank must try to know what you buy and how to follow you as a customer. And then finally, there is still missing customer-centric. In a business place now where you work, it is the customer that calls the tune. That is what is changing. You can see a lot of changes that are happening, whether you are talking of data, people are now talking of data protection, what have you, because they know that your data itself is value. And so this is now the changing place. But there are also other changes, which I don't think we can have time to talk about all through. I think she talked about it. No, there's somebody who talked it early on. I think you did. When you were mentioning how the workplace has changed. Now you can work flexible hours. You have competition, global competition, because now the workplace has changed. The 8 to 5 p.m. kind of place where we used to work in government, in those days, people would go and leave a jacket on the desk, go for business, cheating that they are around, is gone. You can work from home. You don't have to go and leave a jacket on your chair. You can work from home, flex hours and all this. A workplace is changing. Can you find some of those things which you can also do? And can you see how you can digitize your sector? Even if it is medicine, it's now digital. It's going digital in a big way. Legal now, you can even submit your submissions online and the rest. And it is going to change, because they are saying technology, we are only at the beginning of what is going to continue to change. So in short, I think I am so happy to be able to meet with you, as many of you are deep into your career. Please be anxious in your career. There are Bible texts which I would have given you, but I think we have gone over time. For instance, read from Colossians 3, 9 and 10, I think. Whatever you find to do, do it with all your might, as if that's the last job you have. That is important, because when you are faithful, the rewards will come in their own way. And the recognition will come without you having to go and prompt it. People will recognize that you are an asset in an organization. Because these days now, there are metrics that you can use. Even if you are working from home, people can know that this is a productive person. Carry the name of God with you in that case. That people, you will testify wherever you are, that you are truly one that has changed the place, that is known to produce, that is known to be standing out. She was talking of what will separate you. I sometimes sit in interviews and you listen to people coming to look for a job, what they tell you. An employer is not here for charity. An employer is there for you to add value. When you are going for the interview, first of all, ask yourself, what can I do in this organization to make a difference? To improve the bottom line. Don't go there and say, me, I've got good certificate, I'm qualified here, I've done this job, so what? But you tell me, what are you going to do for me that will change my profit line, profitable? So do your background test. In addition to etiquettes, you must try to show that you have added value, so that when you leave an organization, you can leave a legacy. You can walk tall. There are so many things one could talk about, particularly on issues of legacy. And so I thank God that many of you, especially when you all indicated that you are AI savvy, I'm sure you know what the implications are. But also the opportunities that come with it. And so keep your eyes, antennas open. Know the world is changing. But you have an opportunity to make a difference in the society. And may God so richly bless you. I don't know whether we have time to ask a question or one or more.
So the first question, I'm scared of asking, but I'll still ask it. It says to Elder Mwencha, how do you get to be humble despite a very rich profile?
I don't know how I can answer. Humility is relative. It's relative. To me, I mean, if you think that you may probably will see that somebody has achieved more, but for me, I don't see it that way. I still see as unfinished what? Work in progress. I still continue to see myself work in progress. And I am actually pursuing a number of things, both in career, in business, because having worked in the government, having worked in international organizations, now I am in corporate, I want to grow in the corporate. So I'm just starting.
All right. I hope the person who's asked that question is satisfied. I'd like to request Winnie Ongori to stand up. Winnie is bold enough to shoot her shot. And
Please go ahead.
And she's requesting whether you can be her mentor.
Happy to do that. If any of you want, I'll be happy. Because that is my privilege. That's my privilege. We can even have a WhatsApp group where we meet once in a month or whatever and discuss, because sharing is part of actually our obligation as Christians. It's obligation that if you have a cup, let's share. Yeah, I'll be happy.
All right. Please keep your questions rolling. If we don't get time to answer them now, I think he has mentioned about that opportunity to continue to interact. And then the last one I have here is, how can you make the marketplace a mission field?
Yes. Actually, I even at one stage joined the ASI. How many of you know about ASI? How many of you have been in this church for more than 7 years, 5 years? How many of you? How many of you will know Mwencha? She knows him. That's my son. He used to be a member in this church. And he and a few colleagues from this church, by the way, doctors, particularly architect. There's an architect in that group. There is an engineer in that group, all from this church, by the way. I've started a mission work in Mombasa in a place called Kwale. And there are two reasons that took them there. First, they want their children to grow in an environment that they can mold them. Because we now live in a very toxic environment. That's an area I would have wanted to talk as a grandparent. I'm a grandparent of 5. And so it's an area that you should also think through. That you can take religion in your workplace, or take yourself to a place where you can evangelize your family, but also evangelize. Yeah. Some of the mistakes are made, and those are failures. I allowed my children to go to US at a very early stage. And so they went there and started pursuing careers. And I almost lost 2. Because they went into the lifestyle in America. But thank God, Magaka is one of them, who came back. And in that awakening, he then now decided that he has to secure his family. And so they are in that place where they are growing country living, but also evangelizing, and also doing something useful. So you can carry the mission, or in your workplace, the way you worship, the way you carry yourself, the way you do things. If you introduce it, I gave an example, for instance, hey, you introduced worship, and everybody knew that if it's on Sabbath, they will not come for me. And the same thing, even in Comesa. I gave you an example of that failure that I went to see a president on a Sabbath. And he was admonishing me, saying, look, but why do you have to come? Now, from there on, I started to understand that humility I was trying to say, let me be polite, was not necessary. He would have still found out why I haven't come. He would still have found out, because it's so easy for him to say, I called him, why have you not come? I'll come and I'll send a message that I was in church. It will not matter. But fortunately, that became a mission that day, because I learned also his needs, and that's how we became friends. Mm-hmm.